Okay, so welcome again, right? So friends, this is very important clause, and I would like all of you to get like focus on that, right? So it is very important to focus on this because this is something which you need to understand, and this is something which you also need to implement. Okay. Okay. So nice. So now let us talk about this new requirement. So this is a new requirement. This context of the organization, right? This context of the organization is newly added. It was not there in the previous version. What do you mean by context of the organization? Context means what are your issues? Let me give you one generic example and then we'll talk about more specific. Let's say you are at this level A and you want to reach point B, okay? And after 2 to 3 years, or you have some vision that you want to reach from point A to point B, what you will do for reaching from point A to point B, what you will do? You will find out the gaps. You will find out your issues. Now that will be called your context, right? Now, what are the issues which you can come up with? For example, you may say that my knowledge of core tool, knowledge of QMS, personality, confidence, leadership, like this, you can say that I need to improve on those maybe technical skills, networking skills, relationship building, leadership, like all presentation, communication, like all these skills, you can identify these as a gaps. Now, the first thing is this: when you identify these as a gaps, if identification of gap is enough, I'm asking you if the identification of gap is enough. No. Identification of gap is the first step. What would be the second step? The second step, as you identify the gap, is to make the action plan. How you are going to cover up. For example, as you identified that you have gap in the knowledge of QMS, you then enrolled in this training program, and then you made the action plan that this is what I'm going to do. Okay, or you say that I have to learn English on daily basis, or I have to learn some skill on particular frequency, right? You made some action, you took some action. That's the action plan. But that's step number two. Step number one is to identify the gap. Step number one is identify the gap. Step number two is to make the action plan. Step number three is, which is very important, is to monitoring. Okay, what does it mean? Monitoring means whether those actions are followed or not, right? What is happening to those actions? That is equally important. If suppose you identify some gap, irrespective any gap, and every week you made some action plan, okay, and every week we are doing this kind of meeting, and in a like set up this meeting we are doing, let's say online meeting itself we are doing, and every person has to tell about his performance over the last 1 week, or the action plan what he has made, and what is his progress in that. What will happen after 1 year? What will happen after 1 year? Absolutely, there are more chances that after 1 year, your this weak area or your this issue, which was a weak area, that will not remain a weak area. Why? Because this is very important to remember. The thing which can be focused can be improved. Remember this thing. The thing which can be focused can be improved. So if there is a consistent focus, there are more chances that your weak area will not remain weak area. Okay. In the same way, you have to identify. You have to do this step for your organization. You have to do this step. In the same way, you have to do this step for your organization. What do you need to do? You identify the gaps, the issues, the context, right? You identify the gaps wherever you want to reach. You identify the gap. You identify, for example, you said that my company is weak in maintenance, my organization is weak in communication, or we are weak in new product development, in marketing, in sales, we are weak in 5S, poor visualization. Before, what used to happen? Before, what used to happen? People used to hide their issues. Departments used to hide their issues. Now the IATF, the first thing which they have told is to identify the issue. This is a total change. Now you are doing identification of the issues, identification of the weak areas. What will happen? Once you identify this weak area, you will have to make some action plan, and you have to have some monitoring. You will focus on those areas. You will do internal audits of those areas more often. The auditor will be more interested in looking at the action plan. The management will be interested in looking at the your progress. What will happen after 1 year or 2 year? If that is the kind of focus and the attention which you are giving, if that weak area will remain weak area, absolutely there are more chances that those weak area will not remain the weak area, and the system will, there will be actual implementation of system. It should not be like that, that certificate is hanging on the wall, the certificate is hanging on the wall, and you have certain issues which are not being addressed, and then you say, sir, certificate is there, but these issues are there for last so many years. That is what IATF want. Identify the context, identify your issues, work on those issues, focus on those issues, so that your certificate has some value. And that's the reason people used to hide, organization used to hide, the department used to hide. And this is what is the first clause, and that is so wonderful. Although some companies are doing this in a better way and some companies are doing just paperwork, those companies who are doing in a better way, they are getting benefit. Context of the organization. Now there would be some methodology which can be applied. I will talk about that methodology. I will also show you the case study so that you get the better understanding of this clause requirement. Let us first try and understand the clause requirement. Okay, context of the organization, understanding the organization and its context. So we should try and understand what is the context, what are the issues, what are the issues. Okay, the organization shall, it is written shall means mandatory, determine is to identify. What? External and internal issues. So you can see external means outside the company, internal means within the organization. So both kind of issues need to be identified. It could be external, it could be internal, that are relevant to its purpose. Relevant means which are related. It's not that you don't have any business in some other some other country and there is no relationship on with you, or let's say the totally unrelated things are happening which are not relevant. That should not be considered, right? To its purpose and its strategic direction. Strategic direction means where your organization want to go. So strategic direction is means you are deploying some strategies and where exactly you are going. For example, you say that you will be the your organization will be producing the cost effective products and will be number one in the Asia or the world. So you have this strategic as a strategy that will have a cost effective product, or will have the wide range of product, right? So whatever it is, like, it should be related to your the purpose and where your organization is heading as per your strategy, and those that affect the ability to achieve intended result of the quality management system. So those, take those issues, identify those issues which has impact, intended result. So when we say intended result of the QMS, what is the intended result of QMS? If you have implemented QMS, what do you want? You want rejections to be low. You want this customer complaint to be low. You want breakdown to be less. You want your productivity to be high, right? So these are your intended result. So you should take those issues which are relevant and which have impact on your intended result, which have impact on your result. The organization monitor and review information about these external and internal issues. So when we say monitor, that means at some frequency. So you see very intelligently they have talked about this. So you should be monitoring those They should add some frequency. Review information about this internal and external issue. Review means that you identify this, right? You identify and then you try to evaluate those. So that will be your review information. Okay, find out those information, right? About these external and internal issues which are relevant to your organization. Now, let's say what is the context of organization? The combination of the internal and external issues that can have an effect on organization approach to developing and achieving its objective. So, context of the organizations are the issues which may have impact on your organization approach or organization objectives. Now, there is one way how we can identify this. This is a very, very popular way. Internal and external issues can be identified through SWOT methodology. This is what is also being taught in MBA, right? As strength, as weakness, opportunities and threats. So what are strengths? Which are strong, as the name indicates. Weak area, which are weaker, okay, and which can result into a issue which is not that strong. Opportunities, which helps you, any opportunity, right, means those activities which helps you in achieving your objective or which helps you in achieving your company target. So that's an opportunity, right? Threats, obviously threats means which result into a decrease in business, or that will be a threat. So those will be external. So there is one way, we'll see the example also, is SWOT: strength, weakness, opportunities and threats. That is what you need to identify. The other way could be internal issues, could be related to values. Yeah, your culture. So values are set ethics you follow, and the culture, like we say, the consistently, if you follow something, that becomes a culture. And it could be related to your knowledge, it could be related to your performance. Now this is very, very important. Like external issues could be in the form of PESTEL analysis. What is this PESTEL? PESTEL. P for political. Suppose if the government is changing, right? You can perhaps understand if government changes. There are so many business which are sometimes relying on the government, one government, right? And it may happen that if the government is changing, the uh, that business might be impacted. Let's say, take the example of fastest growing FMCG company of Baba Ramdev, Patanjali. Like you perhaps can imagine that if the government, like now there is a BJP and then there is a Congress, so you know that if the government do change, that could result into an impact on the business. Okay, I'm not getting into this politics, but I'm just giving an indication. This happened in South Africa also, that there were like Gupta brothers, and Gupta brothers had a close association with the previous president of South Africa, and that's how this politically, when the instability was there, their business was highly impacted. So what does it mean? That means if the political power change, if the political power change, would that result into a business impact? Economy, needless to explain, economy changes, would that be result into a what could be the issues? If economy changes, what could be the impact on business? So social means putting the social pressure. Recently, a year back or so, a few times back, it happened that in the southern, there was a plant of Hindustan Group, Hindustan Zinc, I believe, and they had to close that plant because there were a lot of there was pressure, society pressure. The villagers had this, they were totally against that plant because of this pollution. And even what happened in West Bengal, the Tata Motor has to shift their plant from the West Bengal to the Sanand, like Gujarat. They have shifted their whole plant. So that was basically a kind of social agitation or social pressure. Technology, if the technology is changing, right? If technology is changing, let's say the driverless car, or let's say the hybrid vehicles, or let's say the now the electric cars are coming, right? If technology changes, what will happen? Now the companies, I remember one company where I was doing consulting. They were making engine parts, and their employer, their MD, he was very keen, and he was visiting the so many new companies. He was visiting the FMCG companies, and I was told that he is interested to do next business in FMCG, or he was also interested in doing business in some battery related business, because he knew that as the electric cars and as the technology will come, all the engine related parts at least will be obsolete in next 15 years. So that's a vision. He's looking at that, and he's preparing his organization for those next 15 years. Yeah, okay. So if technology changes, what would be the impact? If environment, okay, if environmental are changing, what would be the environmental regulations? If that are changing, what would be the impact? If there is a legal requirement, like legal changes are there, let's say BS4, BS6, there are a lot of modification. What would be the impact? And that could be like related to internationally, this could happen, this could be national, this could be a regional basis, this could be a local in your society base, this could happen. So the another way would be is to identify the issues in the form of PESTEL. PESTEL is a very good way which you can identify: P for political, E for economy, S for social, T for technology, E for environment, L for legal. Now the good thing is that these PESTEL issues is generally identified by the management, top management. It's not that the like engineers or the even the HODs may be involved, but not the junior level employees are not involved. Absolutely, this is something which is done at the management level, and they are involved in this, and then they identify this. Irrespective, they make it or in a document or not, that is something which definitely is in their mind, and that is definitely somewhere it is discussed within the meetings. Okay, so what are the, like, although they have not mentioned any documents, right? They have not mentioned this word as documented information, but it is shall. In that case, definitely you should have some sort of documentation which is required, because wherever this documented process word is written, DP, wherever this documented process word is written, that means procedure. Wherever DI means documented information, right? Documented information word is written, you need to have some sort of evidence in the form of documentation. So don't worry about this, I'll be explaining this. So as of now, like yeah, although documented information word is not mentioned, but that is definitely will be required. Although that word is not mentioned, DI word is not maintained, but that is highly recommended that you should have this. What do you need to have? You need to have list of internal and external issues, and then you can have internal external issue with risk analysis. I'm not going to study about this risk analysis, that will read in clause number 6.1. That is something you need to have. So you need to identify the best is that you identify this internal and external issues, right? And who is responsible for external issues? Generally the management identify these external issues. Who is responsible to identify these internal issues? It's the your HODs should be involved in identification of these internal issues. How this can be done? What are the ways in which clause can be applied? So this is also equally important, right? How you can apply this clause, right? So this is also important. So let's say, like for internal issues, right? You can identify this department wise. I would suggest that you identify this department wise. Okay, let each department identify its issues, the area of improvements, strength also, and then it can be compiled at organization level. The cross-functional team, CFT, you can make a CFT, cross-functional team. That means cross-functional team is a team which includes the different head of the department, and then it can be discussed and then identify that which are the issues which will have a control and which will focus upon. So how this need to be implemented? So yeah, step number 1, create a cross-functional team, CFT, cross-functional team, consists of department head and top management. Step number 2, brainstorm to identify the internal and external issues for organization which are relevant to the organization. Step 3, carry out the risk analysis for these identified internal and external issues. What could go wrong? That also you need to identify. Review and monitor or action plan at regular interval. Review this and at some fixed interval, maybe 6 months, 1 year. See the internal, once you have identified some issues, it will not change very frequently. Say you have identified some weak area in your organization. Let's say breakdown analysis is a weak area. Okay, rejection analysis is a weak area. Okay, it will not change very soon. Like it may take 6 months or 3, 4 months, 6 months time to change. That's the reason that can be done at some interval, and that interval I suggest that it could be yearly. At what interval the internal and external issues should be reviewed or updated? It could be yearly or it could be once in 6 months. I do recommend once in 6 months. If not, then yearly is the max. Like you should not update this on 2 year basis. It should be at least 6 months or 1 year is the right is the better frequency. Okay. Yeah. So this is like what we have talked about is the context of the organization. These internal and external issues should be identified. They should be reviewed. They should be updated. The best methodology is SWOT methodology, which is used in so many organizations as SWOT, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. The external issues can also be identified through the PESTEL analysis: political, economical, social, technology, environment, and legal. Right?